Hi friends, my name is Rohil and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about why the church is afraid of yoga. This video is in light of a few blog posts and YouTube videos that I recently came across, which was denouncing yoga, and I just wanted to unpack this topic a little bit more. So in today's video, I've divided it into three sections or three parts. In the first part, I'm going to try to bring forward all the comments or the things that the church finds not good about yoga, the problems that they find with yoga, and why they tell Christians not to practice yoga. In the second part of the video, I'm going to speak about why the church is failing to remain relevant in today's modern age, especially so for the youth, for the young people. And in the third part of the video, I'm going to speak about why yoga as a practice is filling in these gaps that the church is leaving and why so many young people are being drawn to yoga as a practice. So let's begin with why the church thinks you should not practice yoga. So the first comment that I read in multiple blogs and also in multiple church websites was that there is a difference between the creator and his creation, and that we should worship the creator and not his creation. So the creation of the creator would be the nature around us, our physical body, and so on. So in the yogic traditions, we are of course thinking of the physical body as also a part of the divine whole. We are thinking of nature also as part of the divine whole. We are giving this sacred component to everything in the world around us, seeing it as sacred and not having this separation between God and nature. So of course the church sees this as problematic. They see it that one should only worship the creator and not worship nature. But I think more and more as we go through life today, especially in our industrialized societies, we are seeing the problem with this kind of a belief system where there's a complete disregard for nature, and also for a lot of people a complete disregard for their own physical bodies, not taking care of themselves, not nourishing this body. And I think seeing this physical body as sacred and the nature as sacred can do a whole lot of good for our society, for nature that we live in, that we are a part of, and also our physical body. A second problem that the church has with yoga is seeing that humans are not divine, only the God, only Jesus or God is divine. And in yoga, we believe that every individual has an innate divinity, and we are working on purifying the self, working on making ourselves better human beings, less judgmental, removing our strong identifications or attachments to become more free, more light, more divine in that sense. So I think here there is maybe a misunderstanding between the way the church uses the word divine or sacred and the way the yogic traditions use this word divine or sacred. So in the yogic traditions, when we speak about divinity or sacredness, we see it as those positive qualities that are in God, and we are trying to develop those positive qualities within ourselves. So in the yogic traditions, it's not simply enough for me to worship a God to become divine and sacred, but I have to develop those qualities of that God within myself, and that will make me divine or sacred. So, simply by worshiping Jesus Christ and saying that He is God and going to church and reading the Bible and spreading the word about Christ is not enough. I would have to take on the positive qualities of Jesus Christ to truly be sacred in that sense. So, I will have to take on those qualities of unconditional love, of compassion, of loving my neighbors, and truly bringing it into my everyday life and everyday practice to be able to say that I'm sacred. So this is one point again where the church differs on the yogic traditions. So of course, as many of you know, yoga is a spiritual tradition, it's not a religion. Of course, Hinduism as a religion is built on top of yoga as a spiritual tradition. But that being said, because yoga is a spiritual tradition, it has many different power centers. It's not a centralized form of power. The church also has many different power centers, but generally it's a lot more hierarchical, a lot more centralized. So everything is top down, coming from certain elements within society. Yoga as a spiritual tradition is more about our connection with ourselves, whereas the church in today's day and age has become more and more about how it can create control over others, how it can influence the society, and so on. So the church actually denounces any form of yoga practice because it sees the practice of yoga as akin to a demonic practice where we are bringing in demonic entities into our body, into our system. We are praying to demonic entities. We are doing postures that represent certain uh, devil kind of or demonic satanic entities and so on. So there was this video of an older nun who was talking about the snake in yoga and how these yogic practices are trying to awaken the snake, but actually the snake is the devil within us, and we are through awakening this kundalini energy, the snake energy, we are playing with fire and playing with the devil, and thus yoga is very dangerous practice. So this is some people in the church, priests, nuns, and some, I would say, more orthodox churches see yoga as a demonic practice that should be avoided at all costs. So, for example, there are certain postures in yoga. You can have a half moon pose, a Natrajasana, which is a dancing Shiva, and all of these different names, according to the Christian tradition, means that we are allowing certain energies or entities to enter our system. So, a half moon pose, we are praying to the moon, to the half moon, or a dancing Shiva, we're actually allowing Shiva into our system, into our body. And I think that it's very important to state that many of these are symbolic. So, if we think of pagan traditions like Hinduism, shamanic traditions on which Hinduism is built on, all of these traditions were very much about our connection to nature and to bring the symbols, bring a divine connection with all the symbols around us, whether it was a river, it was a forest, because these are things that are ultimately sustaining our life here on earth. And so creating a kind of amicable relationship with all of these natural forces that shape our lives. We also have, of course, different gods and goddesses in Hinduism, but the idea here is that we are wanting to see them more as symbolic rather than real entities. So I think a lot of people who also come to yoga start to see the different gods and goddesses as very real entities, as things that can enter us and so on, and then so does Christianity. But I think as we progress as a human race, as science takes more and more of a hold on our society, and we become more rational, so we think through things more rationally, we make sense of the world in a more logical fashion. I think we can begin to see that a lot of this is symbolic, so that there is no actual entity. When I am, say, for example, praying to the elephant god Ganesha, it's not that this some entity is entering my body and taking over my system when I sing a particular chant or do a posture that represents that god or goddess, but that actually I am trying to build myself in that image. So if we think of a deep back bend, which is the dancer's pose, a standing back bend, which requires a lot of standing balance, it requires also opening in the shoulders, in the front of the thighs. It's a position as a posture, the way it works on the fascial and the muscular skeletal system. It's a very opening posture where we are coming into our confidence, where we have to, in that, to get into that space, we have to go through our vulnerabilities, we have to release our inhibitions and fears. And so when we get into that position, we are becoming like, we are have this energy like a Shiva. A Shiva is somebody who has no fear in their being. It's this divinity which represents transformation, the ability to destroy whatever doesn't serve us and to transform, to create new within our lives. And we are all playing with our own internal energy. I think that, of course, the outside world influences us, but it influences us through the information that we take into our heads, the food that we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe. But I think that is already a very large influence. And most of what we think of entities and demonic possession and all of this is kind of imaginary. I think that people have certain experiences, they feel certain sensations when doing these practices, but this is all actually them tapping into their own internal energies, starting to, for the first time, feel these energies. And of course, us as humans want to make sense of whatever we start to experience when we do meditation for a long time. We suddenly start to experience all of these crazy things it's not that these experiences didn't exist before or that some demon is possessing us. It's all there within us, these physical sensations, which we've just never been in touch with. These energies, these states of mind, these states of being that we've kind of forgotten because we are so far removed from our natural environment, from our physicality, from kind of working on our physical body, working on observing our physical body, all of these which were very much a part of our lifestyle, of our ancestors who lived on the land, off the land. They were hunter gatherers, moving around, running many kilometers every day, walking long distances, had life threatening situations every day. They were very much in touch with that primal force, the primal part of their being, that animal side. And I think all religions, Hinduism included and Christianity, all kind of disregard this primal side of our being, this physical side of our being, this core of our being, which is actually because it's intense, it's unruly, it's it's built on the foundation, it has strong desires, and most traditions, most religions don't want to deal with this part of ourselves. They want to denounce it as evil or bad and not divine. And the divine is something beyond this physical, beyond our primal selves. And I think it's this creates a separation between our primal desires and what we call our sacred divine practices. And so we pray to these gods, we go to these churches, we do a puja in Hinduism, a ceremony, or in Christianity, we go to the church, and all different religions have their own way. We go to these places, and when we are in these places, we feel so sacred, so pure. I'm so good. I'm doing such a good things in my life. I'm really a good person, pure person, but we are not in touch with our primal energies. And then we come back home and something happens in our life. From time to time we go through challenges and different periods which suddenly put us in touch with this primal part of our being, where there are all these strong desires, this crazy stuff that's happening, and we say, oh, this is really bad, I need to. So we kind of don't want to look at it, and so we have this kind of disassociation between our spiritual side and our more animal primal side. But I think yoga is really trying to bring us in touch with our more primal side, our primal desires, our cravings, and starting to observe them, starting to integrate them so that they don't cause us so much harm. When we suppress something, it's just waiting for a situation to come up to kind of release that and create chaos in our life. And so really we are learning how to harness these energies which are within us. They are not demonic, they are not bad, they are not entities from outside of us, they are inside of us, this primal part of our being which we have continuously shunned aside. So this is where I think again I would say there's a disagreement between the true yogic practices and Christianity, which is even today in some new age yoga practices one would believe in entities and demonic possessions and all of these things. But I think that ultimately in the real practices we see everything as a mirror image of what's happening inside of us. There is no entities, no demonic possession that is happening. It is all our own energies which are unintegrated, and because they are unintegrated there are different aspects of our being, of our personality, of our ego that are starting to fight with each other, and we see some aspects of ourselves as foreign to ourselves, and so we are not whole, we are not integrated. And that is the purpose of the word yoga, union, to be whole, to be united, that we integrate all aspects of ourselves to create a healthy human being who is integrated into society, who is connected with their physical body, connected with their spirituality, connected with nature, so that we can live life in a beautiful way, expressing life through its beauty rather than seeing life as a space of darkness and bad things, because we are suppressing all that is dark and primal and bad within us. Moving on to the next point, the last point in this first section of the video, and there's a lot of you can say debate in within Christian circles about whether yoga should be done as purely a physical practice, so we should remove all the spiritual coverings and just practice yoga as a kind of stretching or Pilates, a purely physical practice, or whether whether some parts of the church say that even that is a gateway into picking up other belief systems and other religions, and so we shouldn't even approach yoga as a physical practice at all. So there is this debate happening within the Christian circles. So I think that one thing that we should bring up here is that Christianity as a religion, and if you think of also the belief systems in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, and also after that in the Enlightenment in Europe, we see that there is this a lot of talk about the mind-body dualism, that the mind and the body are completely separate things, and that somehow the body is this lower thing, this demonic thing, and the mind is this sacred thing, this divine thing. However, today, because of findings in science, in neuroscience, some of the beliefs that have been held in Ayurveda and yoga for thousands of years are actually getting scientific backing or credit, which is that there is no distinction between the mind and the body. We know today that when we do some physical activity, this produces certain changes in our nervous system, produces certain changes in our hormonal systems, and these changes in our hormonal systems affect our mental state of mind, because basically our mental state of mind is driven by certain biochemical reactions that are constantly happening within us. And so yoga as a cannot be done as a physical practice, even if one tries to. It is a emotional practice. We are working mentally, emotionally, and if we try to do it purely as a stretching practice, we are losing the point of the practice. The point of the practice is to integrate our mental, emotional with our physical selves. And because of this mind body distinction for so long, we have such a hard time for many people to be truly holistically healthy, where we can combine our physical and emotional selves to be healthy and strong at all levels. And I think that you can reach this state not only through yoga practice, but even through another physical domain, maybe a martial arts practice. Some people may reach it through running, but the idea here is that we integrate our mental, emotional sides with the physical side. So it's that we are not shunning away this our physicality, we are embracing our physicality. And in Christianity, one may say that, okay, you can do your running and workouts and stretching, but it's also important to integrate our emotional sides, our mental sides with that, to say that, okay, as I'm working on my physical ability, it's not that I just go to a physical trainer to work on my physicality and then I go to a therapist to talk about my emotional and mental states. They're completely combined. What we eat, how we sleep, what kinds of whether we meditate or not, whether we are in a state of information overload, constantly taking in information, or dopamine overload, our entire diet, nutrition, lifestyle, physical exercises, what kind of substances are we using, all of this kind of comes together to create our holistic well-being. So from this perspective, this yoga and Ayurveda is a lifestyle. It's not just something we do to, it's not just we stretch the body to gain some benefit, but we are working on a lifestyle, a complete lifestyle, which involves our sleep, our nutrition, our diet. Everything is involved in that, our emotional, mental health, to create a human being that is vital, that is integrated, that is a pleasure to be around, somebody that is a nice, joyful person. Also within themselves, they are happy, and also in the way that they relate with others, in their relationships with society in general, they are a good citizen or a good individual that has positive moral values, wants to care for others, has compassion for others. And this is how we build it, through a holistic perspective. Now let's move on to the second part of this video, where I will speak about why the church is becoming irrelevant, especially to the youth of today. So to understand this, we also have to understand the origins of Christianity and the times it arose in. Christianity arose as the Roman Empire was starting to collapse. And like all empires, if you look in history, there are times when the empires are thriving, when there's a lot of prosperity that is generated from that. A lot of people are lifted out of poverty or sustenance farming. and can then have more time to think about spirituality, about art, about and so on. So, at the time when the Roman Empire was collapsing, Christianity was on the rise. Christianity at the time began as an institution that was providing for the weak, for the downtrodden, for the poor. A lot of people could not afford to eat enough. There was a widespread famine at the end of the Roman Empire, a lot of inequality within the society at that time. And so the church was existing on the fringes, providing minimum support, food, a little shelter, and so on for the poor. And this is how Christianity began to spread in the end of the Roman Empire. And as the Roman Empire collapsed, we had the Dark Ages for a period of time in Europe. Of course, it wasn't the same in other parts of the world. So there was quite, I would say, the opposite in ancient India, for example, which was actually a classical period of yoga. There were the Light Ages during that time. But essentially, in Europe, there was a period of a lot of difficulty. There was a lot of infighting, a lot of different kingdoms that were fighting against each other. A lot of people experienced a lot of violence, a regression of technology, a regression of societal compatibility. And Christianity at that point really did good for the people. The church was feeding people. It was providing a spiritual solace for people at a time when nothing in the external world really made much sense. And Christianity also did a really important job of bringing together people who were societies and tribes and factions that were fractured, bringing them together in one belief system to start again beginning to cooperate with one another, to take up strong moral values, to make sure that people are nice to each other once again. So Christianity really did a good job with this. But I think that what is missing today in Christianity is it's unable to adapt to our changing context. We are no longer in the Dark Ages, but many of the belief systems, the worldviews, the practices are made for that time in our history. They are not made for the way we live today. So you find, especially in places where Christianity is going up, or there's a trend where more and more people are going to the church, you find this in poor parts of Africa and poor parts of Latin America. And you find Christianity rapidly declining in the developed world. In the richer the country, the more the decline in Christianity. For instance, in Northern Europe, European countries, the US, and so on. So, this trend, we can really understand that today's context, what are the things that people are really needing from a spiritual institution, an institution that can, a religious institution, which is actually the purpose of a religious institution, why we require one in the first place, is to bring us together as a community and to give us some larger meaning in life, a larger purpose in life, and help us deal with our day-to-day problems, our biggest day-to-day problems. And what are our biggest day-to-day problems today? Our biggest day-to-day problems today, I would say, are information overload. We have so much more information available to us than we've ever had at any point in our history. And so this is causing us to be scattered, distracted, addicted to all kinds of things, to substances, to social media, to all kinds of things, and is causing certain mental health issues, mental health crisis of identity. So we need an institution that is able to cater to this, to help young, especially younger individuals who are struggling to figure out what is the meaning of life amidst all this information overload, to help them kind of reconnect with themselves, help them reconnect with their purpose. I think the second most important thing that a religious or a spiritual institution should do in today's day and age, a second massive problem that we are facing, is the breaking down of our physical bodies, because we are subjected to more and more highly processed foods, sugars. We have pharmaceutical companies that are profiting upon illness and all kinds of problems with our healthcare, with the way we live our lifestyle. We are sitting in front on a chair for multiple hours in a day. We lack movement from where just 1,000, 2,000 years ago, on average, we would be covering 25, 30 kilometers a day. When we were persistence hunters back in the day, we would be running that distance almost every single day. We had very physical lives, which were interspersed with long periods of rest. Today, we have very non-physical lives with hardly any rest. So we are just uh, our mind is running, and our physical bodies, we are completely not in touch with our physicality, and we have pollution in our food systems, in our water systems, in the air. All of this is influencing us, of course, at some level. So I think one of the issues that the church is having today is that it's not providing any real practices or any real roadmap of how to deal with these problems. How do I deal with my rising health challenges, my rising mental health issues that we are facing in society? There is no real way practice to deal with this. Today, people, because of the advance of science, are more rational and logical in their way of thinking. So they are not going to fall for the same argument that just believe in God and all your problems are going to go away. It's not appealing for many people, especially younger people who are seeing the world around them, seeing their elders suffering with physical ailments, with mental health issues, and they don't want to live that same life. They don't want to follow that same path, and many of them want to break out of it. They're looking for something new, and the church is unable to evolve, to change its ways to the challenges that are present in society today. And the church can go around bashing modernity, bashing science, and saying that it's because of modernity and because of science and because of capitalism that all of these problems are arising. But while some may see that as true, all of these problems need solutions. We can't go back in time to the dark ages so that we no longer have these same problems. We had different problems at that time, and I think our world is much better off today with a different set of problems that need to be dealt with. And this is the reason a spiritual or a religious tradition exists in society, is to take care of these foundations of human life, to create prosperity and well-being, not only at a material level but also at a spiritual, mental level. The next major reason why I think the church is becoming irrelevant, and this is actually something that I have talked to a number of people around me. So I have, as I'm teaching yoga, a lot of people from all over the world are coming to learn yoga, to practice yoga with us, and I've talked to a lot of them who have Christian backgrounds or Christian upbringings, and they've moved away from Christianity. And for me, I'm really interested to understand why is it that they shun Christianity today, that they move away from it when it is a part of their indigenous culture, their upbringing, their belief systems back home. And why is there this disconnect? And for a lot of people, I think the biggest reason that keeps coming up every time is that the church is a very judgmental space. So people there, the priests, the nuns, all the people that follow the church, who are very religious, the core segment of the church, are highly judgmental. They're always judging others, always gossiping about people behind their back. So they create a space which is not welcoming, especially to a young generation that is dealing with so much today, with so much mental health crisis and physical crisis and so many things at a younger and younger age. Today, kids at 3 and 4 years old are already using a smartphone and watching videos on their smartphone and downloading apps, and the whole world has access to them through that smartphone. All the information, all the people, whether the good or the bad, all has access to that individual's mind, consciousness. And this is happening at a younger and younger age today. And how do we help these people? I think the first step is that to create a safe space for them, to welcome younger people, individuals, where we are saying, come, please. I know that you're going through difficulties, you're going through challenges, and me as an elder, as a spiritual elder, as a religious leader in the church, should be saying that, come and I will help you, and to have true compassion. So I think, though the church talks a lot about compassion and loving others and caring for others, I think in the modern day they've kind of forgotten these values, or forgotten to implement these values in their practice. When somebody comes with challenges in their mind, they don't have the compassion to see that person and empathize with that person's suffering, and rather they immediately judge that person as a sinner. And I think this concept of sin, of this person has done so many bad things and now you have to atone for it, and you have to, and this is just not sitting well, I think, with the younger generations, who are actually very smart individuals. They have gone through a lot more experience in a shorter span of time. We cannot take away from these individuals. They're very, very smart, very open, have a lot of depth to their being, and we have to really see their suffering and create a welcoming space for that. And the last point why the church is losing relevance today is that it is mostly focused on theory, and theory was good for the middle and the dark ages. But today people want practice. They want practical steps to guide them towards reaching those end goals. So, for example, if the church says, um, in theory, it's good for all people to be compassionate, and that's very important, that we develop empathy and compassion for others around us. So now, if the church wants us to develop compassion, it cannot just be a theory that, okay, you should be compassionate, you should be loving to all beings. But how do I create compassion within myself, love within myself? This is not explained. And it is, I think it is really important to understand that caring for others, being compassionate towards others, is something that must be developed. It's developed through practice, it's developed through systematically through purifying ourselves, our relationship with ourselves. If I have all this negativity in my mind, I have all this negativity in my physical body, I'm a bubbling individual full of negativity, full of negative thoughts, full of judging others. How am I going to love others? If I'm judging myself every moment, if I don't have a good relationship with myself, if I have a lot of self doubt, a lot of negative self talk, how am I going to empathize with others, connect truly with others, be compassionate towards others? I have to do some practice to purify my mind, to purify my body, and through that internal purification, then I may be able to experience compassion and care for others. And so I think this is where also the church is lacking, is that there is no combination of practice with theory. These kind of are not coexisting. So now let's move on to the third part of this video, where I'm going to be speaking about how yoga as a practice is filling the gap of what the church is leaving as a void for our modern day society, and especially for the youth in the modern day societies. So the first thing that happens to us when we start or begin a yoga practice is we start to reconnect with our physical body. We start to reconnect with our emotions. We are not shoving them under the bed, under the covers, but we are starting to deal with them. As we do our physical practice, first we encounter certain physical postures, and they're uncomfortable. They cause discomfort for us. We are starting to learn to watch this discomfort rather than react to it. We are starting to learn to be more and more comfortable in positions of discomfort. We are starting to relax the physical body. We are starting to calm down the nervous system, to balance our hormonal systems. And through this practice, certain traumas or pent up emotions that we never addressed, that we never gave time to integrate within ourselves, will start to arise. And thus, when people start doing a yoga practice regularly, they may start to feel all kinds of strong emotions welling up within them, that are unintegrated, that have been suppressed for so long. And so this reconnection with our physical body, our mental emotional body, is something completely missing from that the teachings in a modern day church or modern day Christianity. And we are if we are unintegrated, we are not healed, we are going to have negativity towards ourselves and to the world around us. We are not going to live in a society of harmony, of peace. Each individual needs to go on that journey of healing themselves, healing past traumas, generational traumas, and working on finding a reconnection with their own physical, emotional, and mental states. The thing is that once people reconnect with their physical body and their emotions, they go through a period of turbulence where they are starting to deal with all of these things. But when they come out on the other side, they find that they are much lighter, they have much less baggage. they just feel better in life. And this is why so many of the younger generation, they come to yoga, they experience these benefits, and there's no going back to the church after that, which is not showing them a practical path to dealing with the challenges, their mental and emotional and physical challenges that they face on a regular basis. The second thing is that yoga, through this process of reconnecting with our physical body, we also reconnect with nature around us. We see nature as something sacred, and by reconnecting with nature around us, I think it's really important that we understand we are nothing but nature. We are a living being, as any all other living beings in nature. We are integrated with nature. We are nature. There's no separation between nature and us. And as we start to see that, we start to see how when nature is sick, we too are sick. And it's one thing to understand this at a conceptual level, but it's another thing altogether to actually understand it at an experiential level, to experience this symbiosis. And so we are in a world today where nature is more and more being degraded. There is a lot of natural degradation, a degradation of our forests, of our soil, of our rivers, of our mountains. And it is important for the future of humanity, not only our spiritual future, but our very physical existence. It's important that we learn to reconnect with nature, that we learn to reintegrate nature into our ways of being. Maybe nature will not go back to the way it was, but we have to figure out a way to live more in symbiosis with nature around us. And I think this is one great thing that yoga does, is it allows us to experience our connection with nature rather than simply thinking of nature from a textbook perspective, that okay, I need this much of CO2 less in the atmosphere, and I need this much of land for agriculture, and I need this much of water for my population, rather than thinking of it very pragmatically, to actually experience how we are nature, and when there's a problem in nature, there's also a problem in us. And this connection with ourselves and the connection with nature is kind of, we are realizing that everything is sacred. And to realize this sacredness in everything, we are starting to accept ourselves. So, accepting ourselves, our past failures, our past mistakes, our past inadequacies are important. It's important to accept ourselves. And I think what the church and what Christianity fail at doing is this concept of sin, that you are a sinner, that you've done really bad, that you need to atone for your sins and so on. I mean, it helps keep a society morally inclined, but I think morals should arise from within. We must realize our mistakes, accept our mistakes, change ourselves and move on, try to become a better version of ourselves. And if we don't become a better version of ourselves, we are simply just atoning for our sins, doing some religious ceremony or speaking to a priest and atoning for our sins, and then going back to how we were. We are not making any deeper changes to our being. Another thing that yoga does really well is it welcomes people as they are. Even if they have made mistakes in their life, they have caused other people around them pain, they are in a lot of physical and mental pain. It accepts people as they are without judgment, to come to find a place of healing within themselves through their connection with their inner selves. So, this feeling where people feel welcomed, they feel a part of the community, I think is really crucial, because people are not going to undertake a journey of transformation in a particular tradition or belief system unless they feel welcomed by that belief system or that tradition. And I think the community around yoga, people are very open minded, they're accepting of others, accepting that we are human, we make mistakes, we fail, and there's no sin behind that. We are working on ourselves, we are working to become better versions of ourselves so that we can create better families, better societies, better countries, and a better planet ultimately. And I think this is ultimately the core of the matter, is that yoga as a tradition, and it's a spiritual tradition, not a religion, as a spiritual tradition, is creating communities, strong communities that are caring. These communities are loving, are compassionate. You can find friendship, you can find support in these communities. They are open minded. So these are the kind of communities that the yoga traditions are creating, and you can juxtapose these to the kind of communities that the church is creating. And I at least don't know it through in person, but from hundreds of people who have been brought up with a Christian background, who have gone to church all through their childhood. They tell me that these communities are judgmental. It's full of toxicity, full of gossip. There is no sense of community. Only in the community. The more you gossip about others, the more you judge others, the more you align with the beliefs of that community. So in this sense, it can be seen as a very divisive kind of community of us versus them. And as long as there's a them to gossip about, as long as there's a them to judge, then the us will be more united. And so it's lesser about really trying to find ourselves and see in others, each accepting differences in others, accepting our our own inner primal force, our own inner demons, and working to integrating those parts of ourselves, to becoming better, to overcoming our addictions, to overcoming our primal desires, to seeing them, to observing, to know that within me there is light and there is also darkness, and accepting that and knowing that I have work to do on myself, and this is an important part of the process of the path. And I think this is what yoga does beautifully. It helps us work on our mental issues, it helps us work on our physical issues, it reconnects us to our own garbage that exists within us, within the mind, helps us to start to integrate, to remove that, and to integrate different aspects of ourselves to become a whole being who is humble, who is smart, who is compassionate, caring, and who is most importantly has a value of wanting to become a better human being, a better version of themselves. And this is all done practically. So this is another thing why yoga is so appealing to people, is because people are nowadays, people are different from 1,000 years ago. People have access to so much information, they have been brought up in such a different surroundings, people travel all over the world, they meet different people. No longer are people isolated from the outside world, people are integrated into the outside world, and people have developed a much broader perspective, even compared to our grandparent generation. The generation of today, maybe the millennials today, are much more, they have much bigger perspective on life in general. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but in general they have a broader perspective, more depth. And it's important that these people do something that they can see tangible benefits from. So the benefit should not be an imagined benefit that God will save you afterwards in a heaven or in some other place, but it should be a tangible benefit. When I do something, it should tangibly change my life right here and now. I should feel the benefits right here and now. I don't want to feel it after I'm dead in some heaven or hell. I want to feel the benefits or of what I do in this moment. And so I think that what yoga as a tradition emphasizes is practice, is sadhana, is our spiritual practice. That to purify the mind, it's not enough to simply believe in something. We need to work on it, we need to meditate, we need to uh, face our own insecurities, our own demons. And so this practical aspect is something really important, and something I feel missing in Christianity, which is all about theory and no practice. And people today are more and more seeking something which is practical, which can help them right here and now to ease the stresses of their fast-paced work life, their mental health issues, and making them a better version of themselves. So I've spoken about a lot of things today. Thank you so much for staying with me until now. If you have any comments, if you disagree with me, I would love to hear from you and maybe change my point of view, or think of things in a different light. I would love to hear from you. If you agree with me, great. And if you disagree with me, even better. Please drop your comments. Give this video a like if you liked it. And please subscribe to my channel so we can help reach more and more people with these kind of discussions, as I think these are important discussions to have in society today, to find more of what is common between us who are from different faiths or different religions, different countries, rather than seeing the world as everybody is different and trying to pick on those differences and accentuate those differences to create us versus them, to really see that ultimately we are the same kind of beings in a similar kind of experience in different parts of the world. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.